Okay guys, so in this video I'm going to show you what I did to get the numbers and displaying the different numbers for the categories of our emails to work. So let's get into it. So here we are. We have now this these gray rows here, which is just rows that we've clicked, and these numbers here in the outline, where basically the inbox number and the spam number indicates how many of these unviewed emails we have, and drafts is simply a flat number that shows how many draft emails we have. And if I click an email like this and I view it and I go back, you can see that hey, it actually fills out now with this gray border, and the number is actually decreased. So yeah, that's basically all we've added so far. So let's look at how that works. So first and foremost, let's have a look at the diffs. So what's happened now is that I've added to our endpoint for getting an email. I simply have this method called set email to viewed, which takes the email ID and just like the current time. And the reason why we want to pass in the time instead of just doing date.now inside of this method is for testing purposes, because it's very important. Time is something that moves all the time, and if I have a unit test where I do this and then I call this method and then later I assert that the time that has actually been set on my model is the same as this time, odds are that there's going to be a mismatch because of the delay with just executing the code. So that's a very good general practice. Always remember to pass in time variables if you need time in your equations or in your algorithms. All right. Then we have this new endpoint, which is called email overview, and all it does is that it gets the email overview and it sends it back, and that's basically what you're seeing out here. So let's have a look at the email model. We've simply added a field called viewed at, that's just a date, so that indicates when we actually looked at the email. And then we have our email service, where quite a few things has changed. So I also want to touch on that I just fixed from the last video. I saw that I had a bug with my inbox where I showed spam together with my inbox emails. And I simply added another filter to my query, so I'm not grabbing anything that is labeled as spam in order to show that. But let's actually look at the logic here. So we have this method here, set email to viewed. Just grab the email ID and the time that we want to set, and we go to the database, grab the email, and then we set the property and save. Easy peasy. And then we have get email overview, which is just going to count things for us. So we're going to go and count the amount of inbox emails we have, the amount of draft emails we have, and the amount of unread spam emails we have. And then we simply return an object that holds this information. And of course, we've added some unit tests for this. We can actually look at those a little bit because there's a few new concepts here. So as I said earlier, I'm passing in the viewed at date, like the time, so that I can later use it down here to assert that it's the same thing that gets set on the model. And also so I don't have to think about timing issues or something of that nature. And then we have our get email overview, where we simply state three different queries, and all we do is that we assert that they are called in the correct order and that the result object that we get returned over here, it has the correct properties. And yeah, that's basically it. And then we have this little function here, or this component here, email.jsx, and it's something I also noticed while I was working, that I had forgotten to handle the error case, because when we go and actually look at an email, we actually make a fetch call and a network call, and network calls can fail, so we should handle that. And so I added a try catch with the same logic for the other alerts, where, you know, if there's an error, we simply dispatch to Redux that there was an alert, we show the alert to the user, and that's about it. And then I added some music, like a little bit of padding and stuff of that nature, nothing too impressive there. In the inbox container, we've added another call, which is the call to the overview, because when we actually when we grab the emails, we want to grab the overview as well. So the reason why I'm not using await in front of these two is because I want them to run in parallel. So I want this to fire, and then I want this to immediately fire afterwards, so that both network calls happens at the same time, because I don't care in which order they return, I just care that they both return. And then I use promise.all, and that's where I wait, so that I can destructure out the responses, and then I can start executing in a synchronous manner again, where I just grab the JSON, and then as per what I usually do, I have a model called email overview for the front and for the client, where all it does is that it takes an incoming overview and extracts the values and has a default fallback number if they can't be found. And yeah, that's basically it. And then the rest of the logic is pretty much what we saw earlier. And some basic styling for navigation. And here's the email overview, which we already looked at. And here we are now, as you can see here, we are in the navigation list here. So each of these items now needs to have a number passed into it. So I'm just grabbing the email overview and I'm just passing in each specific number to the places where it's actually needed. I don't have to pass it into important and sent email or sent mail because they don't really have a number, but these do. And yeah, and then I just added the navigation to the navigation list. We are simply extracting the email overview from the navigation lists from that state. I can actually show you how that looks, because this is, you know, a new property on our state now. So if we go here to Redux and we have a look, you can see here at the navigation list we actually have another property. So it's not just the path name anymore, but actually the email overview as well, where you can see these numbers are perfectly aligned. And in the navigation list item, we have a few changes where we are now passing in a number apart from the stuff that we already passed in. And then we have some basic styling logic where, you know, we simply check if it is selected, we set the selected state or the selected selector. And then we have a second one where we simply check if the first one is the default. If it is, and there's a number, we are simply going to set it to number, because what we want to achieve is that if it is the selected item, I want it to be red and bold. But if it's just a number, or if it's not selected, I want it to be bold, and that's about it. And if it has no number, it shouldn't even show any type of no styling at all, like apart from the base styles. And yeah, and that's basically it. And then I've added the actions here, so like set email overview, which is just going to grab the overview and dispatch the correct, like the action to set it on the state. And this is the event, nothing fancy there, it's just a string. The navigation list reducer has also been updated so that when this action is being dispatched through Redux, we will just grab the value and overwrite the state's email overview. And we also, of course, have a default state with an empty object. And then we have a bunch of tests to just verify this basic logic that, all right, you're passing in the incoming overview and you expect something to come out, but it's going to be in this shape. As you can see here, we're passing in one variable more, or one property more than we expect in the output, and that's just to verify that, hey, we're not actually just returning the thing that we're getting, we're actually extracting what we need. And then finally, we just added a path to our paths config, and that's about it. So that's all it took to support this feature. So we can now move this card and we're done with this one. Alright, so now we need to have a look at to add support to continue on draft emails. So what's going to happen next is that now we're going to have a think about, okay, so I've made a draft and now I want to open that draft again and I want to finish that email. So let's have a look at that.